What's up, everybody? I'm Brian Wayne, and welcome to the Cheers to Comics podcast. This week we have another installment of trade negotiations. And the topic of discussion will once again be Chew by John Layman and Rob Guillory. At this point, we are now at Volume 3, just desserts. And it has not gotten in worse at all. It gets better. This story is just amazing. So let's start out with Chapter 1. We start out with, and really the most Chew fashion, where it starts out where pretty much like the end of the book at the beginning. And this particular story starts out with Chew and Tony Chew in a restaurant with his beloved Amelia Mintz, covered in blood. Continuing on. Next couple pages is clearly a flashback because we got a bunch of cavemen tackling mammoth and what do they call saber-toothed tigers and shit. So obviously still a flashback, but just kind of giving you a little bit of a hint as to what the fuck's going to be happening. And then we carry on to our story. At this point, Tony is back on the job. He's not on that island anymore chasing that weird plant because that whole plant has been torched. We'll get to a little bit more of that later in this, but they barely touch on that. But like I said, he's back. And his boss, Mr. Appleby, is a lot more chummy than usual. And we find out why that is actually later on. There was something that was kind of clued in the last volume. While Tony was out doing his thing, his partner Colby had to pretty much appease and make Appleby happy. And in that scene, we see them all, they're in the same bed together. And I'm not sure, I didn't know how to take that. We'll get to more of that later. Fact is, boss is happy. He goes up and he's like, "Hey, Chew, how's your new ear? And does it match your skin tone this time?" Because the last prosthetic he got, the boss went out of his way to make sure that he didn't get the right skin tone, so it clearly looked odd. So now his skin tone matches and blah, 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 and we transfer over to Kobe doing his job. Phone rings as Chew's confronting him about why Appleby is so nice all of a sudden. And Kobe's straight up like, saved by the bell. Gets on the phone. And then we get this mysterious figure on the other end talking in code. And code such as the quiet man needs to come from the cold. And the frog man is reaching a boiling point. And the quiet man needs blah, blah, blah. And then Kobe's like, prank caller. And he flips the fuck out. And then he gets a hint it's off to the next mission. And the next mission takes place at a racetrack. And they find a dead body there. Someone finds a dead body. It's up to the FDA to investigate. So they do their thing. This dead body is sitting in the stables of the racetrack. And he's got a pitchfork through his heart and a varmint down his throat. And seemingly it's just a rat. But Colby, with his cybernetic ways, is able to detect that it's not just any rat. It's a gray-tailed pygmy marten. And apparently that's super fucking endangered. And it seems to be like it's being that it was shoved down his throat. This is normal insignia of a rat shoved down his throat would be insignia if he was getting ready to squeal, so they took him out beforehand. But being that this is not a rat, this is something a much higher level species of varmint, rodent. It's they'll hunt on that, or they'll touch on that later on. But I like how they this is something weird, and they just carry on. Meanwhile, they got to get the hell out of there because they got the USDA showing up, and that's pretty much the FDA's evil twin brother, if you will. Like I explained earlier, it'd be like how the CIA and the FBI, it's like they don't necessarily work together very well. So yeah, that whole thing's happening. Meanwhile, they investigate on, before they show up, Tony's like, I better take a bite out of this body before the USDA show up. So he does, and he's like, Amelia, his girlfriend. So that's all we get out of that. So he realizes that she would have a hint as to the whereabouts of Zakila, and we also get a clue as to who this dead body is. This dead body is the son of none other than Senator, I'm going to butcher the name, Hamanchamten. Let me try that one more time. Hamantatsun, whatever. He was in the last couple of volumes. He did. Well, this is his son. Did. So let's figure out what that's all about. So they go to Amelia. She is now working again, and she's a reporter. She's not just doing food reports now. She's actually doing investigative reporting. And the reason why they are led to her is because she just so happened to have been doing a piece on the feller that was murdered. Turns out that he is a member of a very exclusive group called the Diners Club, and they meet twice a year to eat on some fancy meats and animals what ain't alive no more. Well, that kind of gives a little bit more indication as to why this endangered species was shoved down the corpse's throat instead of a rat. So, that's cluing in a little bit more. And Amelia's like, well, check it out. The son was actually he was invited as he was a member just because by association because his daddy was a member, and he went in and immediately didn't like it, so he wanted to expose them. He was going to use Amelia to help expose. Well, before he could get his or before whoever took him down, assuming the Diners Club took out the senator's son, he's still able to get an invitation out to Amelia. +1 for the next biannual feasting, which just so happened to be right around the corner. So they show up. Tony's intent is to take them down, and that he does. He sits to, or he goes down to sit to eat, and the guys come around. Or actually, let me back up just a bit. As they're walking into the restaurant, they see a bunch of articles on the wall pertaining to endangered species. And as it turns out, this very exclusive club is actually responsible for the dodo going extinct, because on the DNA or last eggs of the dodo bird, as they were being flown out to the sanctuary to be preserved, the plane would mysteriously go missing, and along with a few other things. So as it turns out, maybe these animals aren't necessarily extinct, but through centuries going back to the caveman era, which I'll touch on that in a second, so maybe this group has been responsible for actually not necessarily instinctifying, but keeping these species all to themselves to breed to eat. That's fucking deep, man. Well, as they're served their first meal, it's given to them as, what is it, like mammoth and mammoth and something. And Tony takes a bite and he's like, oh, dog, this ain't mammoth. This is saber-toothed tiger. With a hint of semi-digested caveman. But that's all I need. Freeze, under arrest, motherfuckers. Bam. Well, one of the diners takes Amelia by knife and by the throat, and he was like, dog, I spent so much money and I waited so long to eat me some saber-toothed tiger caveman. I'm not letting that happen. So he's got Amelia by the throat. And Tony, all of a sudden, is a motherfucking marksman. Bam, bam, 2 shots right through the eyes. Dead. And then we go back to remember that beginning page when they're in a restaurant and Amelia's all covered in blood and Tony's like, oh, I've had better first dates. Here we are. So that is chapter 1. Throwing down a lot right there. Actually the last page is Tony, like, super happy, laying in bed with Amelia with a big old shit-eating grin on his face. Got some natty. So yeah, no, it's, I dug this issue very much. I think this would be issue 11 now at this point. But yeah, chapter 1 of the 3rd volume. Fucking badass. Let's move on to chapter 2. Chapter 2, it starts out with, I like how it says it starts out with a warning saying the pages got shuffled in this book. This is actually page 18. And it shows a mysterious gangsta looking figure with a gun on a man at a desk and 2 big bodyguards there, and a cage on the right hand side of the frame with a crown on it. Remember the fighting bird from that one volume that we talked about that last time? It's coming up. Then all of a sudden, boom, bulletproof glass comes up at the desk, and the guy on the other end of the bulletproof glass is like, oh, freeze, sucker. And then we got the other feller who's holding the gun. I was like, oh, dude, I still got this. And then we go forward. out of sequence again. I like how this is bouncing around, but it's still not hard to follow. Like, I dig that. I totally dig that. So now at this point, we've got this weird announcer guy. I wouldn't say weird, but it's an odd scene where we got an announcer guy announcing a fight. And then in a whole different color scheme, we got a feller that looks somewhat familiar in a dark alley. And then the frames go back and forth between the fight announcer and the back alley brawl. And it's this guy in the alley just gets the shit kicked out of him and left for dead. And the announcer's like, winner. Well, it turns out the announcer's not announcing the back alley brawl, obviously. He's announcing Boyo, the fighting cock that kicks a lot of ass. And the figure that looks somewhat familiar in the alley was a gentleman tied to Pollo. The last time we saw him, he was leaving an island as a copper with Pollo. So, that all tied together, but now we're back in the now time. And we've got Tony and Amelia, they're having dinner, and this is where they touch on the Gallsberry that's not a thing anymore on the island that got burned up and blah, blah, blah. And it gets to the point where Amelia, like, so throughout this book, Amelia's like, so I bet you're hungry for something that's not beets. I wrote this tasty-ass story. You should check it out. And Tony's like, damn, phone call, gotta go. So then he goes to investigate on another story. So he's kind of leaving Amelia high and dry again. And that's not the first time that happens throughout this story. Well, the thing he's going to investigate is the damn near dead body found in that alley, and it was Raymond Kulolo, like we said, the former cop. Well, it turns out this ain't no cop. This is actually a grifter. And as Applebee's giving his little rundown or spiel or whatever the hell he calls it, Tony, he knows a lot. He just didn't know he was a grifter. So Applebee keeps getting upset, and he's like, "Who's Frabo? Let me calm down. And he gets all nice again for a second. And then Colby, like, reaches over Tony's shoulder. He's like, dude, I think I like him better when he just, like, full out fucking hated you. Because that normally, like, this so far, this volume is not the way Applebee would normally treat you. For the first two volumes, he's a fucking dick. Well, like I said, ever since he came back and Colby was in bed with him, well, he a bit nicer. Well, can confirm, well, I guess later on. Yeah, no, at the next page, we do confirm that, well, almost confirm. And they don't actually come out and say it, but Tony's like, dude, I didn't tell you to sleep with him. And he was like, well, I took care of it. And just right on point, Applebee walks in, but he's got D-Bear with him. You know, D-Bear and Colby, they got, like, an arrangement. D-Bear owes Colby money because of the whole thing. That was all Volume 2 stuff. You gotta listen to the podcast. So, but Applebee's like, check it out, who's your partner, fool? Well, remember, D-Bear had a little bit of an in with the FDA. That's why Savoy and Volume 1 was like, oh, he's untouchable right now. He's in something bigger than you. Well, turns out he is kind of in with the FDA. He knows some shit on some people. He's got an in with someone. Well, Applebee is like, oh, he's your partner now. You got to go do some stuff. So then we see that character, the mysterious character that pulled a gun on that guy in the desk in the first couple pages. Well, he's sitting at a thing with D-Bear now. Turns out that's Chew undercover. I thought it was great because I actually thought it was Colby for the longest time. I got confused. I had to go back and I had to like look at some facial features a little better. He's just well disguised. I thought it was because he got a blonde wig and he looks like a white dude is what it comes down to. But yeah, no, D-Bear's pretty much explaining, is like, I'm in with them, we're going to go in, we're going to do this thing, we're going to extract information from this feller. His name is, what is it? Oh, the Butcher. Naturally. So, they're going to take him down for something. And as they go in there, right off the bat, the Butcher's like, oh yeah, you, weird dude who I don't know. Leave the suitcase. You go. Suitcase has 40 grand in it, by the way. It was to grease the wheels. So they have this whole thing. It's classic undercover bullshit. Not bullshit, but work. Well, Butcher wants D-Bear in the room alone because he's got beef with him. Well, that's weird. Tony ain't having it. Bam, bam. Fucking, pulls the gun. I'm sorry, not Bam Bam yet. Pulls the gun, and then we get that scene where I was like, oh yeah, this is where the pages got mixed up. This is actually page 17. Next comes 19, because page 18 would have been where the bulletproof glass comes up. So after he pulls the gun, bulletproof glass, page 18, way back at page 1, technically. And then instead of shooting the bulletproof glass, because that'd be stupid, he shoots the lock on Pollo's cage. Cock goes crazy, pokes his fucking eyes out, into the brain, like all in the brain, and that's it for ol' Butcher. Meanwhile, D-Bear's like, check it out, or I have respect for you, Tony. The fact that you stood toe to toe with Mason Savoy and are still standing here, like that's some shit, dog. I've been watching you. Respect. Then, so we kind of get a cool moment there. All of a sudden, I like D-Bear. I want to know what old fucking Kobe thinks about that on account of D-Bear's got that arrangement with him. Gotta give him all that money. Anyways, we go back to a week later, and Amelia's trying to, air quotes, feed Tony again by giving her one of her tasty stories that you can digest by reading. Or taste by reading, my bad. And just as he's like, oh, sorry, babe, gotta go again. And she's like, wait a second, hold on, are we gonna go back and forth with this shit? And then you realize that he's like, you know what? Fuck it. Click. Hangs up his old flip phone. He's like, fuck this shit. I'm gonna hang out with my girl. Well, it turns out on the other end of that phone was his partner. Going, dude, we got Savoy cornered. And that's how that chapter ends. Fucking dig that shit. So the first time that Tony decides to neglect his work, kind of a big deal. Alright, let's carry on to chapter 3. We start out with the prologue this time, not the end of the book. But we got a prologue. We've got Mason Savoy, who we all recognize, standing next to a figure that is kind of recognizable, but Savoy refers to him as Agent Valenzano. And these two are in some sort of industrial warehouse, and they got a whole bunch of fucking guns pointed at them. So it's those two on a stare down. Mason pulls out his little cane sword, and he just fucking owns. Him and Valenzano, the two of them, they just fuck shit up. Realize that Mason Savoy, he's pissed off at a failer by the name of Montero. And we saw him early back. He was the guy with the frogs and the chicken and whatnot. Well, Mason's all pissed off at him. He's like, I'm going after this son of a bitch because he knew the bird flu, the chicken flu was coming before it all even happened, and he was ahead of the game and blah, blah, blah. So that's my mission now. And yeah. So then, end prologue. Now we get the Pulp Plus thing again. Pulp Plus is Montero's faux chicken. It's the closest thing to chicken that you could ever taste. Even Amelia Mintz is like, dog, Tony, boyfriend, you gotta have you some of this. Like, tell me this ain't chicken. And then before he can, Kobe's like, I know all about chicken. Let me try this shit. Nobody knows chicken more than me. He takes a bite. He goes, that's not chicken. No. And Tony takes a bite, and he was like, oh no, definitely not chicken. And, well, then he realizes with Tony and his powers, what the fuck it is. He's like, dog, this is frickin'. Frickin' is what he calls it, which would be frog chicken. And then it flashes over to that gross little industrial Montero Industries. Remember that place in the first page? Where all that shit's happening? And then we get Montero. And then we get Agent Valenzano standing behind him. He was that hitman guy. The guy that's been communicating. The guy that took the shot at Tony and missed. He's doing his thing. He's standing next to Montero. And I like that the first thing Montero does is he corrects the word frickin' to chog. He goes, I like chog more, but we had to go with Pulp Plus because it's just not as blah, blah, blah. And so they're going on, and as this is pretty much the point where Montero is like, all right, we got to take out Shu, because I guess what they're going on about is Agent Valenzano is like, so somebody knows that this is frog, not chicken, and that's when Montero's like, oh, we got to take that guy out. And Valenzano's like, problem. Fucking FDA. And Montero's like, well, I don't care. Go get him. Boom. Door busts open. It's fucking Chew and Colby. Guns barreled. Guns barreled. Guns ready to go. Big old raid coming in. And Montero and Valenzano, they run off. They go fucking, they're running away. Smoke comes in. And last second, and then just as Montero turns around, you see the gun barrel, or the gun butt of Valenzano's gun crack him in the head, knock him out. Tony and John catch up, and then they got guns down, or guns pointed at all at each other, and Valenzano's like, y'all fucked up. I'm FDA. I've been undercover for so long. You guys fucked this whole thing up. Shoot, I've been trying to protect you. That gun that blazed by you, I missed on purpose. You really think I would have fucking missed? Oh, God. You guys suck at this. I've been doing everything I can because the fact that, you guys fucked me. And Tony's like, well, how do we know you're FDA? He's like, fucking Mason Savoy can vouch for me on account of he's my ex-partner. Well, bam. So we know that we got that whole connection there. Tony's like, oh shit. That was you that shot the gun at me and blah, blah, blah. And eventually, then they get back to headquarters. And Appleby is like, dude, I'm trying so hard not to lose my shit on you, fucking Chew. But the thing is you fucked this up. You fucked it up hard. And from now on, everything you do has to be signed off by me. Every fucking move. Peace, bitch. I hate you again. And Tony's like, oh, wait, before you go, can you sign off on this? And he realizes that he was going through Valenzano's files, and he knows that Montero has a vacation house, and he could have possibly gone there. So he's pretty much asking for permission to go to this vacation house. Then the last page is that phone call again. Remember how in the last issue I talked about, Tony goes to make that, or he was, I can't listen to you, Amelia, I gotta take this call, and he ignores it, and then it's Colby going, oh, we got Savoy. Well, then we get that same page again. This time it's, you actually see Savoy in the house and FDA swarming, oh, we got him. That's that chapter. So I like how they bounce back and forth and referred like different, this truly is a comic that is probably way better read in volumes like so. I mean, I'm sure the monthly issues were great, but it's just so much more fun being able to immediately refer to pages that would have been referred to a month ago. And so it makes it easier to digest, I guess. So let's carry on to chapter 4. We've got Tony sitting at a restaurant again with this unfamiliar face, but they introduce her as Mindy. So, Tony's last girlfriend. Turns out this bitch is crazy. Tony didn't know that before he asked her to marry her, though. So that's pretty much what the first few pages are. And when he realizes she's nuts is when he asks her to marry her. He's like, oh, marry me. And she's like, oh, yeah, sure. Fucking, I'm so happy right now. By the way, I got this for you. Hands him a box, and it's got her fucking toe in it. That's fucking weird. That'll come in handy later. Then we go, flashes to where it says years later. And we've got a disturbed-looking Tony upset about a message that was left on Amelia's answering machine. Her ex-boyfriend called, and he was like, that Tony Chew, he's a piece of shit, blah, 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 I fucking hate that guy, and you could do better, and Tony's like, oh, no, this makes me kind of upset, and Amelia's like, oh, no, we cool. And so then he's like, well, I should probably listen to my messages before we go to bed and get nasty. And then he finally gets that fucking message from Colby about Savoy being cornered. He shows up to the scene. Appleby's pissed. He's like, dude, we lost communications with 2 extra teams. They're in there. We've got nothing going on. And Colby's in there. Please save Colby. Will you please save my precious little Colby? So they go in there, or Tony makes his way in there, and he's like tasting blood along the way to get his clues, and he realizes that Savoy's been in there whooping that ass. Just whooping that ass. And then he finds Colby. And he's pretty fucked up. Bleeding from the nose and whatnot. And, oh man. Before all that, before Tony gets in and notices all that, we see a page of Savoy actually with Kobe. And he's got him pinned down. And he's like, "You're lucky I'm letting you go, boy. I'm being really generous. Really generous." So that's why Tony is able to find him. Because if we all know Mason Savoy at this point, he's not going to leave a survivor unless he wants to. And he did. Well, turns out Savoy's got a whole lot of respect for Kobe. Because we flash back over to that. This comic goes back and forth quite a bit. But it's still very, very easy to understand. Like, there's nothing confusing about it. All you got to do is just get through the page and you're like, oh, shit, okay. So, yeah, no, we go to the page where Kobe actually confronts Savoy. He's got his gun on him, and Savoy, he smooth talks him, essentially. He's like, "Dude, you probably shouldn't shoot me because I'm actually the one that recommended you be put into the cyborg program. So you would be a rotten, stinking corpse if it wasn't for me." And Kobe kind of like lowers his gun just a wee bit. And Savoy's like, "Check it out. All this shit's wrong with the fucking poultry thing. All this whole ban thing. I want to fix all this." And then Kobe's like, "Oh, dude, I totally agree with you." And Savoy's like, "I truly, truly respect your copping skills. You cop like a motherfucker, bro. Join my cause. You know, you could use your FDA credentials. Just be on the inside for me. We're not doing anything bad. We're just trying to. We're going against the law, but we're going to expose that the law's fucked." And for a second, you think like Kobe's gonna be cool, and Mason would have been a dick and turned on him and shit. It turns out Mason had a good reason for turning on him. He was really just protecting himself because Kobe's like, "Dude, as good as all that sounds, like I respect your fucking shit, but you ate my friend's ear. You ate it." And Kobe's like, "Just so you know, I didn't fucking eat it. I just bit it off because I might eat it later in case he fucking pisses me off." And then he realizes at that point that Kobe's not going to cooperate, and that's what causes him to kick his fucking face in. And then we go back to now times, and we realize that old agent, oh shit, what was his name? Valenzano isn't necessarily completely X'd from Savoy. He's still in connection with them, and they're in this monster movie, kind of going over the happenings, why Colby got a pass from Savoy, and pretty much why these people aren't dead yet. And so you realize that old Valenzano isn't as straight arrow as he comes off. What do you know? And then the ending of the book is Amelia kind of sneaking out of Tony's room. Tony wakes up. He's like, "Amelia, where are you? You're gone. This sucks." And he goes and you see Amelia, she opens up the freezer and she sees a Ziploc baggie in there, or something in there. And she's got this weird look on his face. And that's when he wakes up and he goes into the kitchen to realize that she's not in the house anymore. And she sees the freezer open, and on the floor is a bag of tow. And she clearly realizes that Tony hasn't completely let go of his ex, and she left. How fucking sad is that? It's a little bit sad. That's how chapter 4 ends. Fucking still good stuff carrying on. Let's go to chapter 5. It's Thanksgiving. Isn't it? It's not. So we got Savoy. He's all fancy dressed up, and he's got a bunch of all the fixins. He's got lobster and cheese and bread and ham and an ear. Yep. I would assume that that's Tony Chu's ear. And he's pouring himself a nice Layman 1962 bubbly. What do you know? I like that reference. I didn't catch that reference until I was doing this. Gotta love it. I really do love when the author throws himself into the book. I appreciate it. As long as it's not too hard, where they're a fucking character. But like on a fucking wine label, that's cool. I respect that. So Savoy's eating. He's eating all of his fixins. He toasts to, I'm assuming, his parents. And he takes a bite of that ear. And he gets all types of fucking feelings. He gets feelings of, and through these feelings, you could see flashes of Tony's family, everybody around him, all the happenings, even the biting of his ear off. And you really get, I would say probably too many pages, but I think too many pages kind of just really shows all of the shit that he digested from his ear mentally. And then we go to part 2, where we got Tony walking up to his house, a house, not his house. Turns out it's Rosemary Xu Shen and Tseng Chen, his older sister and brother-in-law. So at this point, it begins that they mention Thanksgiving. Going up to a family's house, I would assume that he's showing up for Thanksgiving dinner. Lady hears this doorbell ring, and she yells, Tony! Well, he's got a twin sister. What do you know? I doubt she's a psychopath, though. Her name is Antoinelle. She is a fraternal twin. And we also realize that Rosemary, she does not like her brother. Not one bit. And she's all pissed off that Antoinelle invited her. She still insists on calling herself Tony with an I. She's really infatuated with her brother, seemingly. So they go inside, and then we get to meet the rest of the family. We've got the grandfather and another younger brother, who is a cross-dresser. I just caught that. Then we got a distant cousin, and some babies and nephews and nieces, and we've got the oldest brother, Chow, in the kitchen, making a bird. That's kind of a fucking big deal. They mentioned that before he walks in. They're like, oh yeah, Chow's in there cooking a turkey. And fucking Chew's like, dog, super fucking illegal. But it's Super Chef Chow, so what are you gonna do? And before they walk in the house, or Tony's the last one in the house, and this dude comes up and he serves Tony. And it turns out he's being served by his brother for breaking his jaw back on Yamapulu, that island. Remember when he rescued him and just shut him up? He just fucking hit him in the jaw real quick. Well, he's actually being sued, and he's in the same house. It's hilarious. So all that's happening, and then once again, before Tony could actually walk in, we get Amelia and Kobe showing up to the party. So they were invited. It's cool that Amelia's not gone. They even get a moment while Tony and Amelia are talking in the foreground. In the background, we get Sister Tony and Kobe kind of really just giving each other the what's what. And Tony and Amelia are like, yeah, no, it's kind of weird to find your ex-girlfriend still, but I think we can move past this, and let's still be cool. And in the back, we got Sister Tony going, well, who's that chick? Is that your girl? She looks way too good for you. And he's like, no, that's Tony's squeeze. And she's like, what the fuck? And she freaks the fuck out. So yeah. Then they go in and we meet a character named Olive. And she's there being a teenager, all emoed out on her phone. And they don't give a description as to who Olive is at this part. And Tony goes to approach her, and she's like, or he's like, I don't know, hi Olive. He doesn't know how to approach her. And she just goes up the stairs, walks away. Dinner's being served. They're like, well, since Chow usually gives says grace, why, but he's got a broken jaw. Tony, you should say grace. So he's in the process of doing his damnedest to say grace, and you hear this loud crash outside. There's a car accident. Tony, being a cop that he is, he goes out to help the guy in the mangled, or one of the people in the mangledness. And the guy looks up past Tony and he's like, what the fuck is that? And Tony's like, what? And he looks up and you see all this like red crazy ziggy zagginess going on in the sky. Definitely something, I don't know. I would say it's of magical sorts or something. Paranormal maybe. A whole new fucking aspect to this book. But that's not how it ends. It actually ends with the family all kind of, or parts of the family all gathered in the street looking up, and then Olive comes out and she grabs Tony by the arm, and with Amelia standing there, Tony's like, Amelia, this is Olive, my daughter. And that's how it fucking ends. As if all of that like the crazy voodoo-ness in the sky wasn't enough. Dog, guys, nerds, geeks, readers, Chew's amazing. It still is. There's so much going on in this book. It's so interesting. Just when you think you have it all figured out, John Layman throws another wrench in. Rob Guillory's art is nothing. It's fucking incredible all throughout. There's, for me to comment on it, in detail manner. I said all that wrong. Would be it would be wasting your time. The fact is, it doesn't get worse. It just continues to astonish. It's amazing. Yeah. The storytelling, on the other hand, that does continue to just grow and amaze, and I hope you're as intrigued as to what the fuck's gonna happen in Volume 4, and I promise I will get that out to you here soon, guys, in the next couple of weeks, at the most. So, thank you all for joining me on another edition of Trade Negotiations. The buzz this podcast was brought to you by Lagunitas Ale, 12th of Never. So, I've been enjoying it. For the podcast listeners out there, just a reminder, you can find the video version of this on YouTube now. So just do the internets and Cheers to Comics in the YouTubes, and you'll find me. Other than that, listeners, you guys know where to subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, all of that good stuff. So, thank you so much, nerds, for joining me on another edition, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.